Good morning. This, as I speak, this is April 8th, and this will be my 11th video on the history of Halloween Horror Nights 2020 Years of Fear. And because some of you obsess over silly details, this is today's t-shirt, which has nothing to do with anything, except it's the one that came up today. Yes. All right. Right, let's go. There we are. Now, in the previous video, I managed to get through most, but not all, of the scare zones. There still remains the big one, located in the heart of Universal Studios Florida. That area that was at the top of Hollywood Boulevard, and in between Pantasia's Theatre, an esoteric gate, and Cafe La Bamba on one side, and then on the upper side there's the what is it called? Oh yeah, Central Park. And then back around behind it is the Regent's Park smoking area, and then over there is the large building 44 at the time. Now that's gone. Transformers is where that used to be, and then Mel's Drive-In. During Horror Nights it's always called Mel's Die-In, and in that central area where the year before had been the Horrorwood Die-In, and the year before that the Schoolhouse, and the year before that the Carnival of Carnage stage show, and the year before that the Arrival stage show. Yes, that's the area where they put Fear Revealed, the very central area of the whole park, because it's going to be an important central aspect. Now, I believe originally that was meant to be where that Halloween tree would be for Cindy, yes? But now, of course, that didn't happen. So they have this there. What they had was an enormous double X made out of metal with fire burning off the top of it. And I guess that was to replace the tree. And that was a big symbol, double X brand of fear, because all of that was like the branding iron they sent out for the press gift. Somehow the mark of fear was that very double X that stands for 20. Just by coincidence! Yes. And what if it was a triple X? Well, then it would have been a porn, a demon, not a fear demon. Enough of that. Okay, so there were already jokes that Halloween Horror Nights 30 was going to be an adult show, yes, of some sort, but we'll see that when the year 2020 comes around. All right. Let's see. So what I was saying, Fear Revealed. So as you approach the area of fear where he gets revealed, but first you encounter the other icons. They all had their own little set pieces. Not those stages on platforms that can roll in and out like they had last year, because of course they didn't have to do that then. They didn't have the parade going through. So it was all on the ground, you see. So it was on the ground. Very nice set pieces that are set up there permanently until the event ended. And every one of the 5 icons, Jack, Caretaker, Storyteller, Director, Usher, had his own little set piece. So Jack had his little tent set up, and it was a really nice little tent there, like a fortune teller's carnival tent. And there was like a little table inside, and you see him sitting at the table with his big boots up on top of the table, very butch and manly that way, wearing his ringmaster jacket and with his cane of souls. And of course he'd come out of there. Of course he wouldn't just stay in the tent. He would be out interacting with guests, terrifying small children, doing all sorts of wonderful things that the clown would do, and accompanied by Chance, his lovely companion, who seemed an awful lot blonder than she had been the last time we'd seen her. And but Chance, of course, the Harlequin of horror, bouncing around in her little skirt and her clown Harlequin outfit, and her little pointy knives. She loves those, you know. What's funny about a knife? She didn't say that year, but it came to mind. All right, so that's that. And then, of course, we had the Caretaker. He had a little bit further up a huge old Victorian horse-drawn hearse and some graves and things, cemetery type area. That was for the caretaker, and he would be there with his snap, 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 snap thing, his little pair of shears. But also, lovely little Cindy was here as well. So, in addition to having her own house, she was running amok in the scare zone with her dad. And then, of course, the director, he had a little set up, like a little miniature film studio sort of thing. There was a victim lying on, tied to a chair with a bag over his head, I believe. And he was there with his camera and grinning evilly, having a lot of fun. Then over another area was the storyteller, and she had it was like a little parlor, a little tiny set with bookshelves and a little mirror and a nice table and a chair for her to sit in, and there were a stack of books on the table, including a weird book called Goat Song or Goat Dance. I don't know. It was just a book they picked up somewhere, and they had a little glasses sitting on top of it, and she would sit there with her book, but also a knife, and she would be creepy old lady stuff that she does. And so that was that. One of the storytellers, of course, is my friend Kim on one of the casts. The same, just as one of the Jacks was my friend Brad. So we have a lot of nice people working the event that year. But Kim was what's her name? Ganush. Was it not Sophia? Sonia. I forget the first name now for some reason. But the creepy old gypsy witch from Drag You to Hell in the scare zone in the same area the year before. But anyway, the evil old witch with the curse, and now she's the storyteller in the same place. Kind of typecast, isn't she? She isn't even old, but she plays these creepy. I mean, she's about my age, but not really old, but she's middle-aged. Well, she does a good job when she plays those characters, and so it was really wonderful. So we have that, and then of course the usher had a little theatre cinema set up with some cinema seats, and I think the ticket booth, of course, it is flashlight to bash people for being disruptive inside while the film is going on. You have to respect the lady. So we have all of these lovely icons set up in their own little areas, and they'd all come out and interact with the guests the whole time. They didn't just stay on the little sets. They would come off, and they would be walking through the streets interacting. Oh, and of course, Eddie was also running through the whole area with his chainsaw. So we have all of these. We have all five plus Cindy and Eddie, and they're all in that same space. Now, there was something odd about the icons, not so much Eddie and Cindy, but the five main icons. On their faces, there were strange marks, like tattoos or brands on their faces, and it was the same sort of filigree design that you had on the lantern itself. It was as if the mark of the lantern had been burned into their faces. So they didn't look exactly like they did before because of the strange mark on their face, but otherwise it was the same five. And then after you go through that, you come to where Fear himself is finally revealed. So until you reach that point, you really didn't know what Fear looked like, because you might have seen him on a t-shirt or a little pin, and it was the only place you could see him at all, and even that didn't give you the full picture. Now finally you find out that Fear was like a 9-foot-tall demon. He was on stilts, you see, and the scare actor bare-chested, or at least they made it look like he was bare-chested, muscular muscle man type and they put some sort of a prosthetic, but still it blended into his own body. So all the carvings on his flesh looked real. You have the double X brands on his arm, and strange writings and carvings, and strange root-like branches going in and out of his skin, so that he was permeated by roots and branches and thorns, and thorn-like claw fingernails, and up and twisting into his face, and no eyes, and great big nasty teeth like you saw in the picture. So this horrible demonic beast. And great big wings. He was supposed to have great big wings, and it ended up being two big flapping pieces of leather that look all torn up on his back. And at his waist, wearing some sort of Sumerian skirt-like thing to cover up the stilts, I guess, from the waist down. But also at his waist he had a sort of belt that had hanging from it the 5 totems, the stakes that originally Cindy was going to use in a ritual, but they incorporated by having Fear wearing them, that shows his dominion over the 5 icons, as they're his spirits of chaos and death and vengeance and legend and sacrifice. So that's who the icons were, and they're all in complete control of the power of Fear, who was supposedly the force behind all Horror Nights for 20 years. Waiting for the 20th cycle to complete so he could manifest the way that he did, getting out of the lantern with our help. So here he is, towering over everybody, the great demon itself. And they had music from Arnold Schwarzenegger's Satan movie. What was it called? End of Days or something? That sort of some kind of music from that movie was playing in the background, and fire would burst up over the double axis. And he also had his own weird little minions. Not little yellow people with one eyeball. No, not that sort of minion. Minion was all we could call them. They were sort of wearing like sort of like a postmodern dance troupe or something. They're all in these grey leotards that covered every bit of their body, and their hoods that covered their face, that had a sort of lantern design where their face should be. And they were just sort of, you know, both male and female, and they're twisting about and contorting and doing acrobatics and modern dance movements all around the place, and then jumping out to scare people when they got the opportunity, and then going back to Fear and sort of just worshipping him and groveling at his where his feet should be, because it's stilts, of course, underneath the skirt. And all of that was going on thing. So, other than the fact that it was a big butch kind of hot guy underneath all that makeup, probably, but Fear never really said anything, and some people found him rather underwhelming. I mean, even though he was this great big beast, supposed to be an icon, you know, he didn't have his own house. He was the first icon not to have a house. Backstory kind of flimsy. They relegated him to a scare zone. He wasn't the last of the icons to only get a scare zone and not get a house. That would happen one more time, at least, as far as we know. And what's another thing about Fear is, again, some people were expecting something more horrible. I don't know. I kind of thought he was cool, and I liked it. God knows that popular with the general audience, because everybody was getting their picture taken with Fear if they could. That was the problem. He really became sort of a massive photo op. There was an official photo op on the streets, by the way, not for Fear, but for Jack. But we'll get to that in a minute. But people wanted to get their pictures taken with Fear looming over them or something else. But he's never been seen again. Now, all the other icons came back last year, except for Bloody Mary, but then she's kind of been, you know, persona non grata ever since the whole copyright issue made it inevitable. But Fear himself, he should have come back last year. Even Lady Luck was there in the scare zone, walking around, and all sorts of other people came back. Crypt Keeper was there, but where was Fear? Last year for 25. Well, I have a theory. This, attention, the following theory is a joke. Okay. Do not take this seriously. Now, back in the 70s, I used to watch, when I was a little kid, there was a program called The Electric Company. It was sort of like Sesame Street for kids a little bit older. Now, I was already a little bit too old for it, because I could, I have to admit, I could read or write since I was 1 or 2 years old. So, I mean, I can't actually remember not being able to read. So it's, you know, I'm a mutant. So enough of that. But so I was already too old for the Electric Company before it ever came on. But Technically, I was like, I think I was 7 years old when it started, or 7 or 8, so I should have been the exact right age. My classmates certainly would watch it and learn how to read, but of course I was already reading The Lord of the Rings at the time. They were struggling with the Sea Spot Run, but that's just me. But getting back to the program, though, it was only on for a couple of years in the 70s. Lots of big stars on that show. I recommend it. But they had this animated segment called Letterman, narrated by Joan Rivers and voiced by Gene Wilder as Letterman, although he rarely said anything more than, "I'm Letterman." And but the idea was that this evil spellbinder would go and cast a spell and change the letters of a word. Like, for example, a lady is eating a pear, and he should change the P to a B, and so suddenly there's a bear instead of a pear, and the bear tries to eat her. And so Letterman has to come flying in. He's a superhero, and he puts a P over the B and turns it back into a pear again, so she can eat the pear and not get eaten by the bear. That was one episode. And that made me think about it, and I realized why fear wasn't there. Somehow that evil spellbinder got a hold of fear and zapped out the F and turned it into a B. So he was there. He was the bear. Bear, 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 bear. The bear over in the 25 years of Magic and Mayhem, or not Magic, Monsters and Mayhem House. The wonderful HHN Bear, who had his own Twitter and everything. That's fear turned into the bear, and so it really was the spirit of all Halloween Horror Nights since the beginning. That explains bear completely. So that's my theory as why fear wasn't there, because fear got turned into bear. And let's hopefully bear will come back and be the icon next year. At least that's my codex to a silly video I made about a week ago. Enough of that. Okay, end of joke. Now back to the usual video. Actually, okay, so that was silly, but nevertheless, fear hasn't been seen since. So will he ever return? I don't know. I want Bear to come back, definitely. I don't know about fear. Anyway, also in the streets that year, there was a chainsaw drill team. Well, didn't we already have saw and steam drill team? There was already chainsaw people. Plus, there were a couple of chainsaw drill team members in the HHN 20 Years of Fear zone. But there was an additional, separate chainsaw drill team that went running up and down Hollywood, not Hollywood, the Plaza of the Stars area, especially at the front part of Hollywood Boulevard before you go through the Lantern Gates. That part where Lucy used to be. It's now Hello Kitty, but back then it was Lucy. And along the Plaza of the Stars area, almost all the way up to New York. Of course, the whole front part of New York, too, because that part wasn't being used. Souls and Seams started over by Delancey Street and the Sting Alley. So that whole part by that Gramercy Park, all of that stuff, all of that whole front part of the park, there was a chainsaw drill team at work. And this was an old-school chainsaw drill team, not wearing the redneck flannels and jeans, but these were wearing khakis and camouflage, and like vest, not vest. Vest is a British word. Tank top tops with camo and fatigue pants or camo pants and boots, and looking kind of like military commandos gone a little bit crazy with their chainsaws. They were more of a military unit, and they had like a sergeant come up and and bark orders at them. And in formation, left turn, all right, attack the guests, whatever. I don't know how they would, whatever it was, probably something better than that. But basically, wait for it, so barking orders at them, and then they go after the guests with the chainsaw, doing that sort of thing where they're all in formation, looking really tight and nifty. Then suddenly they all break out chaotically and attack everyone. Sort of almost surprised, although it's coming, but it seems like a surprise anyway. So that was a great deal of fun. And the other thing that was in the streets is the lovely and beautiful Rat Lady, who was still around back then. And I think they had her on the Plaza of the Stars as well, where you'd buy a couple of creepy guys in almost vampiric sort of gothic clothing, wheeling around, those little eyes that glow and stuff. The big glass coffin, and inside is the Rat Lady, as usual, covered with a little mice and rats. Rats, not mice. bouncing around, little rodents leaping around her and scampering and playfully, and it's always kind of cute and adorable, really. Bob would love that. Yeah, she'd like that job. He likes being in a big box full of rats. Yes. After it's done, you go back, there's no rats in the box, just one big fat cat. Right, Bob? She's not paying attention to me. She's doing the aloof cat thing. All right. And also in the streets, while I wrap up this video, there was a photo opportunity with Jack the Clown. And this was located up on the bridge that goes off towards what was then still Amity. And on the other side goes towards the Fear Factor Auditorium. A little bridge right there. Set up there was a little photo op, and it had the old photo booth, and it was for Jack the Clown. And they went old school Jack by having him wear the original clown suit that he wore in the year 2000, rather than the ringmaster outfit that he wore in the year 2007. So this was old school Jack, and appropriately enough, at least on the night I got my picture taken with him, it was really old school Jack. It was the original Jack, Jimmy Keaton from 2000, who's been Jack, and of course he still plays Jack, because he was one of the many who played him in the stage show last year, but you know, he's the original. So there he was, and it was great to see him there, and got a photo taken with him. And he made, because this was, I had only just started going back to glasses that year, after spending years in contact lenses. So the moment he saw me, he says, "What are you, Clark Kent now?" And I thought that was hysterical. So that was, but got the picture taken there. So that was the whole Jack the Clown photo op. And so that's the streets. Pretty much wrapped up the streets. So I started on shows in part 12.